What's up, Tailgaters? You're in the booth with Tailgate Nate today. The road to predict all 136 FBS level college football teams this summer. Again, guys, is almost over. Today, we are going to go to Charlotte, North Carolina. The Charlotte 49ers have a new head coach this season. Biff Poggi has taken a job over with the Michigan Wolverines. Can their new head coach do what he did at the previous program he was at and elevate this team towards the top of the American? My name is Nate Bope, otherwise known as Tailgate Nate. I want to thank you all so much for supporting the channel, clicking on this video, and doing anything else you do to interact with me. Hit that subscribe button and ring the bell if you haven't already, especially, of course, subscribing, but turning on notifications will ensure you don't miss a thing that I upload, not during the rest of prediction season, not during the college football season either. I am a sports media graduate delving into the professional world of the industry, so you want to see all the cool stuff I get to do while still getting up-to-date updates on what I do on the YouTube channel. Give me a follow at TailgateNate29, Twitter, Instagram, and feel free to even email me, tailgatenate29@gmail.com. I do want to thank you all so much, though, for supporting and interacting with me and the channel yet again, in whatever way you may be doing so. And now, with all that said and done and out of the way, Tim Albin is going to be taking over the head coaching position, which honestly, I do have to admit, I've done a very, very bad job at expressing that. I don't know how it had slipped my mind. It probably was the coaching carousel thing that I had forgotten. But he just won a MAC championship with Ohio last year and now has taken the head coaching job at Charlotte. Theory for another day. What the reality is here is Biff Poggi was not the answer with this program. He's taken, I believe, an assistant defensive coaching job over with the Michigan Wolverines. And enter former Ohio Bobcat coach Tim Albin. You saw the way that he was able to build that Bobcats team in action, and he's going to hope to do the same thing here with the Charlotte 49ers. How do we do preview predictions here on the channel? We are going to go through a roster overview, offense over here to the left, defense over here to the right, and at the end of the video, we will take a look into the Charlotte football schedule, where I will give it a game-by-game preview and prediction. And overall, this video is here to tell all of you what I think about the 49ers in 2025. Now, before we do get started, you look right down below me. Returning production numbers are according to ESPN, and they factor in portal additions up to a certain percentage. What's more, as you look at the recruiting and transfer portal ranks, those are both for the class of 2025, and they are both according to 24/7 Sports. We start with your offensive coordinator in Todd Fitch. Let's take a look at the offense for Charlotte this year, and it is going to have a revamped quarterback room. Every single quarterback that threw a pass for you last year, there were 3 of them, is now gone. A couple of them do enter the transfer portal. Deshaun Purdy is now over with Wake Forest. He was your leading passer last year, 1,802 yards, 10 touchdowns, and 6 interceptions. You're also going to be losing Max Brown. He transferred over from Florida, got his time at Charlotte, and now is going over with the West Virginia Mountaineers. He saw his struggles in a 49er uniform, and you're also going to be losing Trexler Ivy, who I don't think has entered the portal. His eligibility might be done, or he's just moved on to other things bigger than football. So, your quarterback situation this year, you got 2 in-state ACC transfers in Connor Harrell and Grayson Loftus. The reason I say in-state is they both come from in-state programs. Connor Harrell comes over from North Carolina, 282 yards, 2 touchdowns, and a pick last season. Similar stat line he put up in 2023. And then you also do get Grayson Loftus, who's over from Duke. Not much playing time last year behind Malik Murphy, not much playing time last year behind Malik Murphy, but in 2023, when Riley Leonard had some injury troubles, 1,006 yards, 8 touchdowns, 4 interceptions on around 56% completion percentage. So you take a look at both of these guys over here, and according to ourlads.com, as of right now, Grayson Loftus is the guy that is projected to be that starter. I would agree with that just because I think he's got more experience. I think he's shown a little bit more when he's been on the field there as well. And you take a look at both of these players' rushing abilities. For Connor Harrell, it's actually remained remarkably consistent over his career. 3.4 yards per carry. That is his career average. Now, did rip off a 61-yard run in 2023, so you do have to take that into account there. As far as Grayson Loftus goes, he's just not a guy that's going to get outside of the pocket and run. Harrell, I didn't mean to sound like Harrell's this prolific runner. He's not a guy that's going to get outside of the pocket and do that a lot either, but he does have a little bit more of that ability than Grayson Loftus. However, I think Loftus is the overall better fit player for what Tim Albin, I think, is going to want to do here, especially for what Todd Fitch is going to run. And I think he's just a little bit more talented choice to start in this quarterback room. Top 3 rushers from last season. Well, you are going to lose some more portal pieces because all 3 of them are in the transfer portal. Hashawn Wilson has transferred over to UTEP, 559 yards and 7 touchdowns last year. His running mate, and the guy that actually got the most carries last year, 129 of them to be exact, 525 yards and 7 touchdowns for Cartavius Norton. He's over now with South Florida. And then you also are going to lose Teron Kelman, who was with the Wyoming Cowboys. So to replace the transfers that you do lose, you're going to get a few transfers coming in, but there are a lot of returning pieces that are projected to play some big roles. Henry Rutledge is going to be a redshirt senior coming back. He's projected, as of right now, to be that lead back. Rod Gainey and CJ Stokes are some other nice returning pieces. And then here are some of the names you're going to get from the transfer portal. Donald Chaney, I think he can slot in and play a really big part to this running back room. He is a Louisville transfer. You get Cameron Smith over from Western Illinois. And then Jareel Cobb is over from North Carolina. So you are going to be getting a couple really nice portal pieces coming in there. I think especially the likes of Donald Chaney. I think he can step in here and overall play a pretty good piece. I believe he was formerly at Miami, transferred to Louisville last year, and is now down in the group of 5 in the American here with Charlotte. Watch out for him, but also a lot of the returners that I mentioned earlier. Most of your top wideout pieces are also going to hit the transfer portal and leave. Omega Blake is now with the Arkansas Razorbacks. Jarius Mack is gone, or I should say Jarris Mack, apologies for mispronunciation. He is with Western Kentucky, and there are so many other transfer portal pieces that do leave. Of course, Blake is the big one. Mack is sitting right there. You're also going to lose Isaiah Myers to Western Kentucky as well, so on and so forth. However, there is a very nice piece that is going to see a return to this wide receiver room. Your second overall leading receiver, 470 yards and a touchdown for Sean Brown last year. He's going to be that graduate student that's going to be the biggest leadership role in this wide receiver room, and you're going to see a couple transfers slot into those starting positions around him. You're going to have E.J. Mason, who is a Samford transfer, and then Jaden McGowan, who comes over from Boston College, formerly of Vandy. Look at what he did in 2023. 386 yards, did not have a touchdown, but that was on 36 catches. So can be a pretty prolific wide receiver here. And then a bunch of returners going to fill out that 2 deep while transfers fit in to the 3 deep. In your tight end room, you're going to need some new pieces to step up. Transfers are going to be coming in here. Or I should say, you're going to see new pieces step up with a transfer entering. That probably will be that lead piece, Jake Young. He's coming over from Western Carolina and former North Carolina Tar Heel. I think he's going to be your lead tight end. Ourlads.com thinks so as well. Joey Burns, redshirt senior. He's going to sit back there. Gus McGee, boom, another redshirt senior. So your tight end room is riddled with experience, just guys that need to step up in bigger roles this year. The offensive line is going to see plenty of overhaul, but experience is plentiful on this unit. Even with the transfers that you do bring in, your projected 2 deep, according to ourlads.com, is made up of all juniors and seniors. No matter if they're true, redshirt, doesn't matter. This room is filled with upperclassmen. And look, it needs a lot of improvement from last year, but there are a lot of good experienced pieces, and I overall like a couple of the pieces you did bring in through the transfer portal there as well. All right, so there is your offense. Again, we'll see who fits into the quarterback position and the skill position room going over an overhaul, so we'll just have to see who steps up. Same thing with the offensive line. Defensively, Nate Fangs. I'm going to check that pronunciation, actually. Yeah, I should have probably guessed Nate Fawns. Apologies for the mispronunciation. He's your defensive coordinator this year. Let's take a look at some of the defensive talent. Now, before we do that, the defense is going to need a lot of improvement. I think we know that. This is a Charlotte team overall that was never very good under Biff Poggi. It needs a lot of growing in general, but especially on the defensive end. Tim Albin, though, has a history of building some really strong defensive units. Take a look at what Ohio has been in the Mid-American Conference over the past couple of seasons. Some really good, strong defensive pieces, lots of good defensive talent, and at very least over the past few years, Ohio's been one of the better defenses in the Mid-American Conference. Now, they might still be again, but without Tim Albin here, I mean, you just look at programs he's been to, right? They have built some strong defensive units, and that absolutely can happen here at Charlotte as well. You're going to need to get your level of talent in there. So let's look at the talent that Charlotte does have this season. Defensive line room and starting room, the entire starting room is gone. You're going to need a lot of new pieces to step up, but this room is going to be heavily revamped by the transfer portal. You really do not have that many returning pieces to this room at all. The ones that you do, probably going to be depth pieces like Io Tafase and Jalar Holly. They're guys that are not projected to start. So here are the transfers that are projected to start. You have Cheat Kaba, Jamarian Solomon, Mako Williams, and actually Mako or Maceo Williams, depending on the pronunciation there, was over at Kent State, formerly of Utah State there as well. So, I should say Utah State, formerly of Kent State. I think that's the direction that it actually ended up happening. He'll slot into the D-tackle position, and then Braden Mullen, you could throw in a couple different places. He is going to play that rush position, be your edge rusher. He's a transfer from Dartmouth College, even the guy that sits behind him in Jalen Jackson. Northwest Mississippi Community College, so a lot of transfers building up this defensive front. Linebacker room, it gets shredded, absolutely shredded. Every major piece in your linebacking room is gone, up except for one, though. Reed Williford is back. He was your leading tackler on the defense last year. 77 tackles, 2 sacks, and 2 passes defended last season. Now, albeit pretty much every piece around him is gone. So it's going to be Williford and a slew of transfers. His running mate this year expected to be Shea Taylor. He is an Ohio transfer. So is following Tim Albin over here to Charlotte. 72 tackles, double-digit tackles for loss. Did pick off a pass, forced 2 fumbles, 4 passes defended last year as well. Guy's an absolute beast, and I think it's going to make for a great 1-2 punch in the linebacker room. Yes, you do have some other transfers and things that overall, again, we could talk about, but that dynamic 1-2 punch right there with Taylor and Williford, I think going to make for a pretty solid linebacking duo here with this room. You play 5 defensive backs, but lots of your secondary pieces from last year, especially those top ones, are going to transfer out. Travion McGee, though, is a nice, solid returning piece. Top 10 tackler, had 39 of them last year, and was overall a pretty solid defensive leader. So you do get a lot of very, in my opinion, high upside transfers coming in here to this team. Ty Baldwin is a Ball State transfer that's had 53 tackles over the past 2 seasons with 8 passes defended in the same time span. Caleb Curtin is an Elon transfer, and you do get in Gavin Shipman over from Harvard, as well as a couple other depth pieces that'll enter this team as well. A returning punter is going to step up here, so it will be a new primary punter, while a ton of new pieces, both portal and freshmen, will take over this kicking role. That is going to be your special teams report. Kickers are people too. You know, we got to show them some love. So when I look at this Charlotte team, really surprises me how little Ohio transfers are going to be coming in here, because there were a lot that entered the transfer portal. And even when you look at C.A. Bangura, a guy that transferred back to Ohio, wasn't because of Tim Albin, because he wanted to go back there to Athens. So that maybe is the one note that's just a little surprising to me. But when I take a look at this Charlotte team, a lot that you got to fill in. And quite honestly, Tim Albin had some really good talent at Ohio. So I think it's going to take a little bit to build up this talent profile. But I think immediately you're going to start to notice the improvements with this Charlotte team. Now, when you take a look at the 2025 football schedule, I think it's very manageable. I think when you take a look at this schedule, you can pick out a pretty simple scenario to where this team can hit the over on their over-under win total. Okay, maybe it's not super simple. They probably will have to win one game that they're not going to be a favorite in. I think Tim Albin has entered a building process here at Charlotte. Going to take some time to build this team up. But let's tell you about these FanDuel odds. Again, they're from FanDuel. No, I'm not sponsored. No, I'm not telling you to go place your money on any of this. I'm no one to talk gambling with. but it does provide some nice good context to see how good the odds makers think Charlotte's going to be this year. Well, they have tied for the longest odds to win the conference, really long odds to get to the college football playoff. And again, they're going to echo my sentiment. Building process here with Charlotte, 3.5 wins is that over-under win total. However, like I said, I think Tim Albin already has seen a good influx of talent through the transfer portal. I think this is the team that is going to take that nice step forward this year. It's not going to be gigantic, but maybe you avoid the double-digit loss column this year. Maybe that is not necessarily your big goal. I hope Tim Albin's going to have higher goals for this program, but maybe when we look back at the season and say, hey, that's a nice improvement for this team. I know that 9 or 8 losses is not going to look great, but for where the Charlotte team has been at over the past couple of seasons, it's about making those steady jumps. And I think Tim Albin's going to have a lot of struggles here in year one, starting out with you get a game against Appalachian State. Now, it technically is a neutral site game, but you're going to be playing it in Charlotte. So the Appalachian State Mountaineers, your first game, and again, technically neutral site. I think they're going to play it in the home of the Carolina Panthers, which is also in Charlotte. But it's just not at Charlotte's home stadium. But Charlotte is going to act as the home team, obviously it being in their home city. But I think they're going to struggle in this one because I think App State has still got some solid talent, even after all they lost. They're going to be under new management this year with Dowell Loggins. AJ Swan's going to be transferring in to presumptively be that starting quarterback. He's got some nice skill position pieces to work with still. Kanye Roberts back in the running back room. Dalton Stroman back in the wide receiver room. And overall, this is an App State program that I think is too proud, has too high of a foundation floor to really disappoint that heavily in Dowell Loggins' first season. I think they take it to Charlotte basically on home turf. And App State is going to win that neutral site game to open the season on Friday, August 29th. So then you're moving right along into your home slate. You do not have to leave the city of Charlotte until October. You don't have to leave it because you get that neutral site game in your own city. And then North Carolina, Monmouth, and Rice. They are all 3 home games. I think you're going to lose one of them at least. And well, it's pretty easy to see which one I think that you're going to end up downing. North Carolina is that one loss. North Carolina is going to get Gio Lopez, who's a South Alabama transfer at quarterback, a guy that I like a lot. But obviously the biggest thing with North Carolina is, look, Bill Belichick adjusting to college football, something he's never coached before. How much success is he going to have? That's a big talking point within this program. Well, he's got a really good wide receiver group to pair with Gio Lopez. Some really nice defensive pieces are going to enter in through the transfer portal to bring a lot of high upside to this unit. I think overall North Carolina is probably going to be that roller coaster team. They're going to see some really high highs, probably some really low lows, but overall a solid North Carolina team that I think is too talented for Charlotte to handle. Water break. But we'll flash up the next prediction right here because I also think this one's pretty easy to see. I think you're going to beat Monmouth pretty much no problem. However, a team that I do believe is ranked in the FCS preseason poll, might have to fact check me on that. If they are ranked, they're not very high. I think they're going to be somewhere in the low teens to 20s, but Monmouth, a team that, could push Charlotte around if this is really going to be an exponential building year for Tim Albin. But I think at the very least, that's going to be a win for Charlotte. And I think Rice is going to be a win as well. E.J. Warner transferring out. Dean Connors transferring out. You lose some other really good pass catching options, some really good defensive pieces. This is overall a Rice Owl team that I think is really going to struggle through this college football season. Overall, not a team I'm looking at and being real high on. I think they do have some good pieces, but overall, I don't expect them to really be much. And so Rice, I do think, I should say Charlotte, I think is able to get that win at home. What's number one rule of college football? Don't lose to food. Okay, sorry, Owl fans. I had to. I don't think I've made that joke all season. So, okay, you have not left the city of Charlotte, and you're 2-2. You had 2 pretty tough non-conference opponents. Okay, let's move full slate into the conference, or actually, let's move into your full conference slate. Already started it with Rice, so you're starting out conference play 1-0. but your next few games here to round out the first half of the schedule are not going to be easy for you. You have to go on the road and play Byron Brown, and one of the most dynamic quarterbacks in the country, of course, that being Brown, with a South Florida team that I think Alex Golesh has trending in a phenomenal direction. I think that's going to be a loss there for the Charlotte 49ers. South Florida's got a lot of great offensive talent, and the defense should be taking some nice steps forward this season. Just too talented of a football team. On the road against Army, and look, I know everything that Army lost. There's no more Bryson Daly, American Offensive Player of the Year last year. There's no more Kanye Udo. Even when you move to the defensive side, there's no more Elo Medozi, stud linebacker. However, I think Army still got a really solid squad here. I think they are still coached really, really well, and I don't see them being as good as they were last season, but this is still going to be a solid enough team to stand towards the top of the ranks, maybe not in the top 3 or anything like that. We'll see. I definitely think it's a possibility. Army's still going to be a good football team this year, even with all they lost, and that is a loss for Charlotte. So you start out the year 2-4. I think you improved to 3-4 here with a win over Temple. Temple is definitely a team that when I look at them, I also think is really going to struggle this year. Now, Temple does have, I believe, a good head coach coming in Casey Keeler. If Temple's going to be a team that surprises a little bit this year, okay, I wouldn't necessarily be fully surprised, but much like it is for Tim Albin here at Charlotte, I think it is going to be a building process for Casey Keeler over here at Temple. Obviously helps Sam Houston do some really big things at the FCS level, including helping them win an FCS national championship, including building Sam Houston State last season to one of the more surprising teams in the country and a 9-win team in Conference USA during the regular season. This is very much so a Temple team that, again, really going to struggle this year. That's going to be a win for Charlotte. However, I think it's going to be really difficult to find a win the rest of the way. North Texas is a feisty team. East Carolina could be a potential sleeper. And then you just got 3 really good sides to round out the year. So, a little bit of a spoiler alert. I do think Charlotte loses out. Let me tell you why, though. North Texas. They lose this one right here because, again, North Texas is going to be feisty. Yes, they lose a lot of nice pieces, including Chandler Morris at the quarterback position, but with all the transfers they bring in, I think it really is going to help play into the skill set and especially what Eric Morris, the head coach, wants to do here with this program. I think all the transfers that they brought in really going to play to this scheme. That's the word I was looking for earlier, not skill set. Really going to play into this scheme in North Texas. Could be a team that can surprise in the American. Same thing with East Carolina. They're going to return a lot of really good pieces, returning quarterbacks, some good wide receiver pieces. Defensively, they got a lot of studs. And East Carolina going to be, again, one of those hard-to-beat teams in the American this season. Again, then you just got 3 really good teams to round out the slate. At home against UTSA, I just don't foresee the Roadrunners having as poor of a season this year as they did last year in relation to program standards. Owen McCowan at quarterback, I think, is going to take that next step. You do have some really good wide receiver pieces, such as Devin McEwen, Willie McCoy. It's a shame that DeCorian Clark is not going to be coming back. That's what it first looked like. Now, I do not believe that that's going to be the case. Even so, you got some good offensive weapons. Defensively, you're trying to replace a couple pieces, but a lot of nice returning talent, including some good transfers to help you out. UTSA is going to have a nice bounce back season. That's going to be a win for the Roadrunners. You're not going to go on the road and beat Georgia. Simply put, not happening. End of story. Cut it right there. Georgia's going to be way too physical for this team. They're going to be way too big and bulky up front. They're going to have way too many skill position weapons for you to try to defend, so on and so forth. That's going to be a win for the Georgia Bulldogs. And then I think Tulane is going to beat you as well. I think Tulane is absolutely still a team that at its peak can go compete to get into that group of 5 spot in the college football playoff. Tulane is still a very talented bunch. Even with all they lose, Darian Mensah is off to Duke, Mekhi Hughes is off to Oregon, and a lot of other transfers do leave. Well, you get a lot of nice solid pieces coming in, and now that quarterback situation's gotten real interesting, man. I already thought Kane Samanza would be a good option. Now you're probably looking at Jake Retzlaff, former BYU Cougar, to be your starting quarterback. That's going to be a really, really nice addition to this Tulane room, even if because of when he enters, he doesn't start right away, he doesn't feel comfortable in the offense, so on and so forth. I think Kane Samanza going to be a good option there, but this is the Tulane team overall I see having a lot of success this season, probably looking to get back to an American Conference Championship game, and really well coached by John Summerall. Outside of the quarterback room, they got a lot of nice pieces. So 3-9 for Charlotte this year. Again, when you look at that, you're not going to scream, oh, wow, they had a good season. But I think this is going to be a step in the right direction. Biff Poggi, I don't think, had a season quite like this. And I think even a lot of these games you lose, Army, I think you could be competitive. North Texas, I think you could be competitive. You even might be able to surprise App State. Maybe UTSA doesn't bounce back quite like I'm thinking, so on and so forth. So this is the team that I think has got a fairly high ceiling, depending on, or I should say not depending on, but based off of what I'm predicting them to go. However, building process for Tim Albin gets off to a solid start in year one, but look for Charlotte to only go up from here. That's my preview prediction for the 49ers. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. And remember to play hard but tailgate harder. See you guys in the next video. Goodbye.